The wind that swept across the desert that morning was not kind. It carried with it the scent of rain and dust, and the whisper of danger that had haunted the frontier for months. In a small settlement crouched between two cliffs, a wooden bathhouse stood behind the general store. Nothing more than rough-cut timber, a stove that hissed with boiling water, and a single cracked window looking out toward the endless plains. Inside, the air was thick with steam and silence, broken only by the creak of boards expanding in the heat. Clara Reeves had come there early, hoping to steal a few minutes of calm before the day began. She had been on the frontier for only 6 months, but it already felt like years. Her father had bought the little ranch on borrowed money, and she had learned to live among storms, strangers, and the sharp taste of loneliness. The bathhouse was her one refuge, a place where the grit of the trail could be washed away if only for a moment. She had just poured hot water from the kettle into the wooden tub when the door slammed, open with a crash so loud it seemed to shake the walls. For an instant she thought the wind had done it, but then the shape filled the doorway, tall, broad-shouldered, half-shadowed by the morning sun. The figure staggered, and for a heartbeat Clara saw the glint of something dark along his ribs, blood. He was breathing hard, his chest rising and falling like a bellows, and his eyes, black and sharp as obsidian, searched the room not with anger but with desperate need. She froze, clutching the towel to her chest, heart hammering, steam curling around her like a curtain. Who are you?" she managed, but the man didn't answer. He shut the door behind him with a rough shove and leaned against it, pressing a hand to his side. Only then did she see the gash torn through his skin and the red staining the leather around his waist. He muttered something in Apache, his voice low, pained, and full of gravel. Clara didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. He was wounded and barely standing. "Wait, don't move," she said, her fear wrestling with pity. "You're hurt." He looked up sharply, as if realizing for the first time she was there. Small, pale, dripping with water and fear. His expression shifted from instinctive alertness to stunned embarrassment. He turned away, jaw tightening, the tips of his ears coloring darkly as he muttered again, this time in English. I didn't know someone was here." The tension in his voice cracked through the air like lightning. Clara blinked, caught between disbelief and confusion. The stories she'd heard of Apache warriors were all of fierce raiders and bloodshed, but this man didn't look like a monster. He looked like someone fighting to stay upright. He reached for the basin, trying to steady himself, but his hand slipped and he sank to one knee. Without thinking, Clara stepped forward. The steam blurred everything between them, turning the bathhouse into a dream. "You need help?" she said, grabbing a towel from the hook. "Sit still." He didn't argue. When she pressed the cloth against his side, he flinched more from surprise than pain. "The soldiers," he whispered, eyes darting to the window. "They're close." Clara's stomach knotted. She had heard gunfire at dawn, far off toward the ridge. Now she understood. This man wasn't the hunter, he was the hunted. Outside, hooves thundered faintly through the valley. The man stiffened, muscles tensing like drawn wire. "If they find me here," and he began. Clara interrupted, voice shaking but firm. "Then they'll have to go through me." First, she didn't know why. She said it, maybe because she had seen enough death already. Maybe because she could see the fear he hid behind pride. She guided him toward the corner, pulling an old blanket from the bench. The warrior obeyed, still refusing to meet her eyes, still red-faced with the awkwardness of barging into a woman's refuge. The situation should have been absurd, but the danger made it solemn. Minutes stretched like hours. Outside, the soldiers rode past without stopping, their voices carried away by the wind. Inside, the only sound was the slow drip of water and the man's uneven breathing. When the danger had passed, Clara finally exhaled. "They're gone," she whispered. He looked up, meeting her gaze for the first time. Up close, she could see the lines of exhaustion around his mouth, the faint tremor in his hands. "You saved me," he said. "I didn't mean to frighten you." His accent was soft, rhythmic, and his eyes, dark and steady, held a depth that made her heart twist unexpectedly. "I'm not sure I believe that," she replied, managing a shaky smile. "But I'm glad you didn't bleed out on my floor." That startled a quiet laugh from him, just a breath. But it changed everything. For a moment, the steam between them felt lighter, warmer. "What should I call you?" she asked. "They call me Kahe," he said after a pause. "It means strong oak, and you?" "Clara Reeves," she answered. It means trouble, apparently. Kay's smile deepened, brief but real. As she cleaned and bandaged his wound, Clara found herself listening to his story in fragments. How his people had been driven from the river valley, how he had fought only to protect the families left behind. He spoke with the weight of someone who had seen too much, yet still believed in something better. She didn't realize until later how close they sat, or how the silence between them had shifted from fear to something unspoken, fragile and human. When at last Kahi stood to leave, the sun had dipped low enough to burn the sky orange through the broken boards. "You should rest," Clara said. "You won't get far tonight." He hesitated, torn between gratitude and caution. "If they come back, then I'll say you were never here." She met his eyes. "You don't owe me anything." Kay inclined his head, a gesture of respect older than words. "I do," he said quietly, "and I will repay it."